Hello guys, am I audible? So if I'm audible, please help us to verify that. Cool, awesome. So welcome to co-learning launch webinar, guys. This is a webinar where we'll be talking about migration to Rasa 2.0. So as you all must be knowing, the recent library of the recent version of Rasa, which is 2.0, which has a major changes, and which is obviously in the favor of developers. And through our project, we will be walking you guys through what all things you need to be changing if you are using the older version, which is Rasa 1.x, and how you can what all things you need to do to move it to Rasa 2.0, right? So I'll present Racheal, who will be helping us in terms of if you in case if you guys don't know what is Rasa and why there's a necessity of Rasa 2.0. So let me just share my screen quickly. So in this presentation, I'll definitely will talk about Rasa 2.0, and in this agenda, we'll talk about Rasa. What is Rasa? What is this co-learning launch community is about? I'll walk you through restaurant bot in Rasa 1.x, and then Rashmi will walk you guys through how we have migrated the older version of the bot to the latest version of the bot, right? And now handing over to Rachel. So Rachel, yeah, let me just hand over to her. And
Hi.
Rachel, yeah, so you can continue.
Screen.
Sure, I'll get out.
All right. Good morning. I'll present that. Nope, this is the wrong tab. I'm so sorry. Give me just a second. It's pretty early for me. So while I'm sharing my screen, I can start talking about what Rasa is if you're unfamiliar. So Rasa is a company, and we do two main things. So one thing is that we have an open source machine learning framework that allows you to build conversational assistants. So anywhere where you'd have a conversation with a system, I'm going to read my tabs really closely this time. There we go. It's this one. Fantastic. I have a gajillion tabs open, like I'm sure most people do. So any place where you would have a conversation with your system in order to interact with it, hopefully we can support that use case. So we're a little bit different from, something like Dialogflow from Google, or I'm trying to come up with another one, Lewis, from Microsoft, in that we don't do the hosting. We just provide the framework. So you can have your on-prem hosting. You're not like tied to a specific cloud provider if you're using Rasa. And the other thing that we have is a free but not open source project called Rasa X. So this is a visual framework, visual interface and framework that allows you to continue improving your assistant over time. So as people have conversations with your assistant, Rasa X provides a nice way for people to come in, annotate the conversations, what went well, what didn't, manage model versions, retrain, redeploy. So pretty much the continuous integration, continuous deploy system, except with a conversational assistant and a machine learning component. So Rasa X, if you are using Rasa X and you would like to use Rasa 2.0, it's version 3.2 plus will be compatible with Rasa 2.0. If you have a version before that, you're going to need to upgrade. I know some people had some trouble with that recently. And I thought what would be really helpful today is to talk a little bit about what's new in Rasa Open Source 2.0 in particular. So, and these are in order of basically how big of a change they are, I would say. So the biggest change from my perspective in Rasa 2.0 is this rule policy. And if you're unfamiliar with policies, it's a way to decide what your assistant will say next. So we have a lot of policies that are machine learning based on transformers that will sort of look at all the options and choose what the model thinks is likely to be the best one. So currently we recommend TED, which is a policy that we've developed here at Rasa. And that's useful for conversations where some degree of flexibility is important, but sometimes you just want to make sure that certain things happen in a certain order. So some examples of this: if you have training conversations and you're like, hey, if our conversation is following this exact pattern that I provided in my training example, just keep following the training example. Or if you have a number of pieces of information that you need to collect, so maybe somebody is ordering, a product, and you need to make sure that you know their address and that you have their payment information and that you know like the version of the product that they've ordered, and you want to make sure you have all that information. You can collect that using something called a form that's not going to finish the form until all the pieces of information have been collected. Or if when your assistant's maybe uncertain what to say next or isn't entirely sure what the person that's talking to it is trying to say, what should you do then in those cases when you're uncertain? And maybe if you're uncertain and you ask for clarification, depending on what the clarification from the user is, you might want to try different things. So a fallback policy that'll handle those cases when your assistant is struggling a little bit, or just straight up rules. So if you had, an assistant that is like helping people pick a mixed drink as an alcohol company trying to sell more alcohol, you can't do that to minors. So you might have a rule that's like, hey, the first turn in our conversation is always, I check whether or not you're a minor. And if you are, the conversation's over. And I don't try to sell you alcohol because, at least in the United States, that would be illegal. So these sorts of things that were different rules were all in different parts of Rasa, and as we added them and as users needed them, they sort of got more and more fractured and a little bit more confused. And so we've now taken everything that has to do with if X, then Y, that sort of structured rule, and put it into a single policy called the rule policy. So that's the biggest change, is that things that were all sort of in different places are now all in a single place, anything that's deterministic. Another big change is forms. So I mentioned in the use case where you need to collect a bunch of pieces of information, like maybe you're doing a quiz or you're filling out necessary things for orders. And forms used to be part of the SDK. So you'd need to run Python code independently of your Rasa Assistant server in order just to collect information in a conversation. And we have moved forms into Rasa and open source. So this means that it's easier. Basically, there's less steps, there's less to do, more straightforward. And it also means that if you had a project where you had forms and you needed to have an action server, and all of the action server was doing was providing a form, you can get rid of that. You don't need it anymore. Another big change in terms of day-to-day development life is that previously training data was provided using YAML. Was previously provided using Markdown rather, and we have changed to YAML instead. And eventually the Markdown format will be deprecated. When you train using Markdown, you'll get like a little warning that's like, hey, make sure you deal with this eventually. It's not super urgent, but FYI. And we've also provided some converters, so we'll automatically convert Markdown to YAML in this format, and you can like check and make sure that the YAML looks good, and then use that going forward. YAML, a lot of reasons. So this is something that we talked a lot about with the community, and there's a huge discussion on the forums about sort of the relative benefits and drawbacks of YAML and Markdown. But big things to think about is YAML is a lot more flexible. So if we want to add more complex features that rely on the Markdown language being able to handle more richly structured information, we can do that. It also lets us do things like support custom metadata in training examples. So if you wanted to like have a tag for some of your training examples, you can do that with YAML. You can't do that with Markdown. And a big one is being able to divide really big files into multiple separate files. So you could, for example, have multiple config files that have different pieces of your assistant, so you don't have to like scroll through a 10,000 line file every time that you want to update your assistant. And also, it allows us to support rich metadata media in the response selector. And what's the response selector? I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about that now. So the response selector is when you have a broad category of interactions that don't really change the flow of the conversation, right? Let's say that, I'm meeting a friend on the street. I say hi, they say hi. I'm like, oh, how's the weather? And they're like, I hate it. And then you have like the rest of the conversation. Those little sort of like chit chat bits, I could have replaced that with basically any small talk. Or if somebody had a question, I would like stop, answer the question, and then resume sort of the flow of my conversation. So response selector lets you handle lots of different types of chit chat, lots of different types of FAQs, frequently asked questions, using in a single place without really changing the flow of your conversation and having to provide a lot of training examples about how conversations should go. So previously, you could only use plain text. So if somebody had a questions, you could only tell them a plain text answer. Or if someone was like asking about the weather, you could only have a plain text answer. And one thing that's new in 2.0 now is that we can have buttons, we can have images, we can have videos, you can have more rich responses to these, FAQ or chit chat questions. Also, we've tried to make it a little bit easier to get started in a couple of ways. So one thing is that the config file is what describes how your language data will be processed over time, how your language data will be processed as it's interacting with the assistant. And previously, you couldn't train if you didn't have some pipeline specified, which meant that you'd have to spend time like figuring out what all these components are, which ones you want, what order they should go in, before you could even train your assistant for the first time. And so what we have done is we have like a suggested config now. So you do need to provide the language because perhaps obviously different languages are different and require different processing steps. But we have like a baseline that should work okay for most people, for most things, that will just sort of automatically be suggested, and you don't have to spend a bunch of time futzing with it when you're training your first assistant. But of course, you're always free to customize it further as you need it. And finally, also on the subject of getting started and just having like an easier time from the get-go, we have the Rasa Playground. So this is available on the Rasa website, and it allows you to train a Rasa assistant right in your browser. You can add training data, you can train a model, you can interact with your assistant just in the docs without having to download or install anything. So if you just want to like try something out really quick, maybe on a computer where you don't have Rasa installed, you can try it out there. Or if you want to like, have a bot building party and just do it in a very lightweight way, the Rasa Playground will let you do that. So those are the big changes in 2.0. We're continuing to release new versions. One of the things that I know I said at one point would be out in 2.0 and is going to be a 2.x feature is end-to-end learning. So keep an eye out for that in a future release. And yeah, it's in active development. So I will take any questions. Oh, let me go to the tab with questions. I don't see any yet.
Hey, Racheal. So we're taking question at the end. So
Okay.
We have lots of questions to go through, right? So better to take it at the end.
That makes sense.
Awesome. So we'll move to the next round.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks, Racheal, for the quick overview. Thank you. So guys, we have seen a super quick overview of Rasa 2.0, what all things have been changed in the Rasa 2.0. So what we'll do here is we'll walk you through, our project and what we've done as a restaurant bot, and just quickly walk you through what all things we have built so far. And Rashmi will walk you guys through how can, what all things need to be changed in case, we are moving to Rasa 2.0, right? So I'll be sharing the slides here. Keep a note on the just a second, let me share it again. Yeah, so use that presentation slides for for your reference as well while we are walking you through everything about Rasa 2.0 in our project, and I'm also sharing the project with you guys so that you can later on do this exercise when you are available, right? The whole scope of this project is to walk you through quickly, and whenever you are free, you guys can go and experiment with it. And since we are the close community of our Rasa people, we'll be happy to answer all the questions that you guys have, right? So I've also linked a WhatsApp group invite. You guys can join that as well. Okay. Uh, so Sumit will take all the questions at the end. Once we are thorough with the entire thing, right? Okay. Coming back to the presentation. Uh, so Rachel quickly introduce what is Rasa, and we'll move to Rasa 2.0. She also mentioned why Rasa 2.0 it is simple and better. Now we'll move to uh, I'll just give a very quick introduction about what is co-learning launch. So co-learning launch is a community where we are it's definitely community of all the data science enthusiasts, and in this community we are coming together and open sourcing the educations, meaning you already have the lots of content out there on the internet, right? But some content is duplicate, some content is outdated, and some content you have to really struggle to find the right content, right? So what we're doing as a community is we as a community creating the nice content, putting it to the one central repository, which is right now GitHub, and doing all sorts of activity on top of that, which is learning sessions, such kind of webinars, or a project based sort of activities, where not just you guys go through this content passively, but you actually go and implement the or use that content to learn actually for real, right? So that in that sense we are sourcing the education. So this Rasa restaurant bot is one of the project from the whole activity, and the whole idea is to come together, collaborate, and contribute. So in case if you guys wants to come and contribute to this project, feel free to do so, because that's where people have learned Rasa from nothing to they've got a job in Rasa as a developer, right? So I would encourage you guys to not just read the document, but go and experiment with this project to learn more about the project. So I'll just quickly walk you through, guys, about restaurant bot project, and let me just quickly share my screen. Cool. So I hope you guys can see my screen. In this screen, there is a crisp and user experience, or I'll say conversational UI or UX, which is we have developed as a scope of the bot, and this is clearly a restaurant bot which try to accept lots of information from the user and trying to give the best possible recommended restaurant. So to be very quick, the as restaurant bot it is right. So the first thing that we'll be asking is obviously I'm looking for the restaurant, right? So there are lots of parameter when we actually search for the restaurant, right? So definitely you must have used application like Zomato or Swiggy, something like that, right? So whenever you go and search restaurants, it's really painful, considering there are lots of restaurants, there are lots of reviews, there are lots of options, right? And you are always confused, and you always ask your friends, and there's always a hell lot of time it takes to go and search the restaurant. So we thought, if I could, can we create some sort of a chatbot which just asks user questions, just takes user questions, and help the user to pick the right restaurant, instead of just being idle at that point, right? So here we're trying to create an intelligent chatbot which tries to accept lots of queries from the user, and using that information, it will go and hit the Zomato API and collect all the data. So as a part of the scope, we are taking location as one of the primary parameter. We're also taking cuisine, we're asking a radius, we're also asking what kind of category the user looking for, and kind of establishment and all, right? And this is just the scope phase 2 of the project. At the end, once the, let's say, user got the right 5 6 top restaurants, then we're also telling them to asking the user to go and book the table for them. It's just a dummy flow, but the whole idea is to mimic the complex chatbot in such a way that we go and learn something from that, right? So that definitely we have done in the Rasa 1.x. So I'm assuming you guys must be aware of Rasa at least. In case if you don't, just look at the entire project scope, and I will also share the videos that we have recorded as a part of the webinar. So the whole idea is that location is the uh, uh, mandatory entity, because without location it's difficult to suggest a restaurant, right? Because there are lots of restaurants which can pop up without just location. So the location is very mandatory field, and we're asking cuisine, to be very precise about the kind of restaurant that user is looking for. And as and when the user has more preferred options, then we're asking that also. And what bot will do is it will collect all the parameters and go and apply as a parameters in the Zomato API, and fetch all the curated or recommended restaurants from the list, and it will show it to the user, right? And so you can just imagine what all things you can ask as a user and try to go and implement as a part of the bot, right? So the whole idea of this project is to build something, some sort of a real application where we can, let's say, in some point of the time, we can make it public, and you can we can people should start using it, and probably will can improve the user experience of the entire bot, right? So as the you know don't just think this as a academic project, but think of it as like you have a startup idea and you are building this project, and you have to sell this project, and people should actually use this bot instead of Zomato, right? And if they're able to use this bot, then you are succeeding in the chatbot project, right? And if, let's say, if somehow they're not liking this, then definitely the whole project is failing, right? So as a part of chatbot development, it's not just about development, but it's also about designing, right? So how do we design so that the user has a best experience in terms of while they're talking to the chatbot. So this is what scope that we have defined so far, but yeah, we know that lots of things we can improve in terms of user experience. But the whole idea is to go and build at least basic chatbot, build on top of that, learn all the concepts that is required to learn Rasa, and then come bring the user experience perspective, and then improve the overall scope of the bot, right? So that's the restaurant bot. In this, definitely in this project, we have definitely use everything that is required, that is very very essential in the Rasa, which is action, fallback intent, and we also have used forms to explore things, right? That is for while getting the booking of the people, right? And we definitely have also used testing stuff. We also used a custom component. We also use synonym entity, custom entity, and duckling entities, and lots of things. So whenever you're going through the project, you will actually understand all lot of concept from this bot. Okay, and you always have the Rasa's official YouTube channel to learn everything from the from them. And you also have the Rasa forum, and Rasa document itself is so so useful, so easy to go through. You can always go through and learn Rasa entirely. And definitely we have the local learning launch community to help you guys to clear your doubts as much as we can, right? So that's the whole idea about the entire scope of the bot. And let me just reshare my screen again and move back to the presentation mode. So yeah, moving to restaurant, yeah, we definitely did we definitely walk through a location, cuisine. We can also ask radius and category in establishment. So whenever you go, so you must be having a question like what is category, what is establishment. So whenever we go and look at the Zomato document, you will able to understand what is category and establishment. So category is something something like kind of cuisine which is segregated, and establishment is something like, is it a bakery, is it a fine dine, or something like that, right? So you can go and explore that. And as a part of the table booking, we're asking phone number, date, and number of person. We're trying to explore as much as things as we can, while keeping Rasa learning in mind, and doing everything. So we will ask or encourage you guys to go and explore this project, and feel free to contribute if you are if you would like to, right? We have this WhatsApp group to go and explore. So this is a restaurant bot demo. I'll share that as well in the link. And now I think it's time to go move to Rasa 2.0 migration. So what we'll do is Rashmi will walk you through all these things that is needed to change in terms of Rasa 1.x to Rasa 2.0. Okay, and this will be definitely a walkthrough with some sort of examples. And the idea is you can definitely look at this video later, and try to compare, try to do hands-on by yourself. And definitely we have the WhatsApp group to clear all the doubts. So I'll welcome Rashmi, and Rashmi will take you guys forward uh, to Rasa 2.0. Cool. So hi Rashmi. Uh,
Hi. Hello,
Hi.
everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thank you, Yogesh, for giving the preface for the restaurant bot and what we've done in 1.x. And thanks, Rachel, for the amazing review overview of 2.0 and what's there in it. Guys, Yogesh, can I take over now?
Sure. So answering Ravi's questions, the whole
Mhm.
idea is we don't want to spend too much time in Rasa 1.x because the whole webinar is on Rasa 2.0. So I'll share the previous Rasa 1.x our webinar videos, and then you guys can. So definitely Rashmi will take enough time. She will go slow in terms of explaining everything. So sorry for being so super fast. Thank you.
uh, has been changed from version 1, and if you are a newbie, then how to start off with Rasa 2.0. All right, so here we go. So first and foremost, before we start, if you have a version of Rasa 1.x already, you have a bot that is running and you want to convert or migrate it to 2.0, then first, yes, take the backup. I know we all have experienced situations when we haven't, and it has got messy, but here we are going to take the backup first, and then we are going to create a new virtual environment. So if you are on Conda, Anaconda, then you create a Conda environment, or you can create a Python environment. So why we create a virtual environment is we can install, and all the dependencies can be installed in that particular environment, and it will be a clean way to do it. Then we have to install Rasa. Rasa to You can say pip install, just pip install Rasa, and it is going to take the latest version, or you can give the specific version as well. You can check the Rasa version. I can show you that here. Previously, Rasa version was just showing us one the Rasa version 1.10 or etc. But now we can see Rasa version, Rasa SDK version, Rasa X, etc. So if you can see my screen, you can see all of this by just choosing Rasa version. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead. Fine. If you're new to Rasa and you're starting off now, then this is the right place to start with, the Rasa Playground. So it is nothing but an interactive bot, example bot, which you can see and you can start off with. I'll just show you that. Yeah. So here is Rasa Playground, where you can just build your assistant. You can see the NLU data, you can see the responses, what's the format of it, syntax of it, the stories, forms, the rules. So you can see what this example bot is showing. It's actually a subscription to newsletter. That's the crux of this bot. And then you can also train and talk to that assistant right here. So you don't need to actually download Rasa or do all that. If you want to just look at how Rasa is actually working, you can go here, play on the Rasa Playground. You can train it. It trains quickly, and then you can immediately talk to the assistant. Yeah, that's how simple it is. And if you still want to customize your assistant, then you can download the project. So download project is actually going to download the entire project for you, and you can further see. All right, I can show that quickly. yeah, you can see the new way of how 2.0 is. So all of the files, the syntaxes, everything of the sample 2.0 is shown in this project. All right, so this is Rasa Playground. So if you have to start off, this is the best way. Another way is after we install Rasa, we can do Rasa init. So this is again going to give us a sample mood bot, which is going to say, you can just play with whether you're happy or sad. It's going to cheer us up if we are sad. So a simple mood bot is downloaded if you give Rasa init. So that's what you can start off with. Moving on to the next one is training data. As Racheal said, all the training data that was marked down has been now changed to YAML format. Yes, a survey was done. A wide variety of responses was, got by Rasa, and finally YAML got the popular vote, and then YAML was chosen as the format to have for all the files. So now, how do we actually do that? Advantages again was spoken by Racheal, but I can just go through that. You can add custom metadata. We'll see the syntax a little further now, and then you can divide the YAML files into modular files. What this means is that you can change it to FAQs. You can make a file for FAQs. You can make a file for chit chat, etc. So you can divide the files, and it is going to be in one format, and you need not break your head for the other formats. And it supports rich media and response selector. So you can have images, you can have videos, attachments, etc. So that's the advantage of it. How do we migrate it is very simple. So Rasa data convert NLU, this command, and here the source directory would be your directory where you have the NLU files, that is the NLU FAQ chit chat, all of that. If you have it in one folder, then you have to give the folder name here, and the out is again the output folder where you want the converted files to be in actually. So NLU, so one by one, we will have to run the migration commands. And what it is going to do is, if we have example chit chat, the file is like this, but ultimately it's going to make the file as YAML, okay? And it is going to change it automatically. So it's going to convert it with just one command. So we convert NLU. If you have NLG, then this is the second command is the one which you have to use. And if you have for core is nothing but the stories and rules, you'll have to use the last one. So that will convert it. So this is the YAML format. Pretty much like the previous one, but we have examples and the pipe over here. It is much more readable and I think neater. So that's why it's moved like that. Okay. So in the next change, yeah, this is actually the syntax of the training data and the core. We have NLU, that is intents with metadata. You have synonyms in NLU, regex, and lookup table. So I will show you examples of what the NLU data looks like. So training NLU with entities. So here, if you see, we have training data that is, the intent is telling cuisine, and we have the entity as cuisine. What is entity, if you ask? It is nothing but uh, um, uh, a parameter which is helping you to extract information from the intent, from what the user is actually talking to you. So cuisine can be different. It can be Mexican, it can be Italian, it can be Punjabi, etc. like that. So cuisine is the entity that you will actually try and extract. So this is how the training data with NLU will look like. And the metadata, this is something which is new. Metadata is what you can use for further analysis. For example, in this particular example, metadata, we have sentiment as neutral. So this, if we have for other examples, if it has sentiment is positive, sentiment is negative for different examples or for different intents. Then further, you can later after from take extract the conversations from the bot and get a sentiment out of it, do a sentiment analysis. So that helps there. So I think that is something which we can leverage and make use of and come up with something useful. Then regex, even that, the example is here. It's simple. You can use it for email, phone number, etc. What you think would be ideal for your particular bot. Synonyms, wherein you have same names or similar synonyms basically. So here Tamil cuisine is nothing but Chettinad cuisine as well. So you can have, for example, if it's a banking project, banking bot, then you have credit card. It could be just credit or something of that sort. So you can, list out synonyms over here. Synonyms. Okay. Then lookup tables. Basically, this is like a set of categorical values which you will look up for the different intents. For example, we have cuisine here as a lookup table, and then we have multiple cuisines here. So this, when the cuisine is looked up, when the user is actually saying, I would prefer to eat Mexican, it looks up at this particular table. It's a YAML again, so I can show you that quickly. Yeah, it's right here. So cuisine, right. So this is our list of cuisines. That's what it helps with. All right, next. That was about the NLU. I'll come to the stories and the rules now. Rules policy is something really, really nice that has been added in 2.0. Rules ensure that there is a fixed response to whatever the user says. So it is like a dialogue management where it is rigid. All right. So if you, for example, you want the response for greet as after greet itself, and it should not be anything else, then you can set that rule. So it would not actually be involved in the process of the different transformers, etc., etc. So all this, when you set a rule policy for different rules, it will just be devoid of all the fancy things that happen. Okay, so yeah, previously we had mapping policy, form policy, fallback policy, two-stage form fallback policy. All of these policies are combined into one policy called as a rule policy now. So all these are going to make one policy. So for example, if I can go to config, yeah. So now we have form policy, mapping policy, fallback policy, etc. So all these are pretty much wherein you are setting a rule. As in, if something goes wrong, if there is an out of scope question, then it has to be taken care of by fallback policy. So it is a rule predominantly. So all these policies are now moved into a rule. So if I can go to config, yes, here it is. So yeah, we've just replaced all the other policies with rule policy. It's simple, right? So, but we do retain memoization policy, augmented memoization policy, and TED policy, because these are the ones which depend on the data. It depends on the flow, depends on the conversation. So that remains. Whatever we had with respect to the rules per se is going to move to rule policy. Okay. Yeah, advantages, all-in-one policy, easy and simple, rigid, and it is user controlled. Again, this is very simple to convert as well. So we're just going to use Rasa data convert config. So this will convert the stories and rules into a particular config. Sorry, this will convert the config which has the mapping policy, etc., into one policy, that is the rule policy. So if you see here, this is a very simple rule that is intent is greet, and you want the action to be after greet itself. You don't want it to be anything else, and you set that rule, and it will be good for the entire bot. You don't have to change anything at all after. All right. Okay, rules for the rules. When you're sure, go with rules. That is, when you're sure that okay, if I say A, this the B has to be the answer and it cannot be anything else, then go with rules. If not, go with stories. If you think like if the cuisine has changed, or the location has changed, or something has changed, and the flow of the conversation should be different, then go with stories. Otherwise, stick to rules. And another rule for the rules is rules can override stories, but stories cannot override rules. So rules take the upper hand on stories. So if I have a story as well, like for utter greed, and I'm sorry, for greed, and I say, answer something else over there, but I have a rule to answer for greed as utter greed itself, then the rule that you've set for greed is going to be the one that will run and not the story. So we need to be very careful when we are setting that up. So we have to be clear as to what all rules we need and what all stories we need. All right, moving to the next. Yeah. So this is a simple distinction between rules and stories. What are rules? Singleton interactions with fixed responses, as I said already. You can use it for chit chat. You can use it for FAQs. And then these are like, building blocks like greetings, goodbyes, thank yous, and transitions. So you can use it for all of that. Then activating and deactivating forms, because forms are pretty much like defined. So if you start off a form and then you need to, the employee ID and the employee name and etc. So all of those has to be there to go ahead with it, right? So it's a rule. So activating and deactivating forms, we can use that. Triggering a fallback. So if there is an out of scope question or something that the bot doesn't know or understand, then we can use a rule. Stories wherein there is multi-turn conversation, whereas why is that, can I get that, or tell me more about it, etc, etc. So that those are multi-turn conversations, and stories are better for that. And situations where you want the model to learn to make the predictions about conversations it hasn't seen before. So something like a surprise for the model, and the model has to learn, then you can go ahead with stories. Yeah. Okay, so a simple example again, rules to handle fallback. We just have the intent, and then the action to handle greetings, greet and action bot greet, and then goodbye, same thing, fallback rule. So this is pretty much like done and dusted. Just keep that. And then stories are the ones there's meandering things happening, wherein there's a different cuisine or a location, different actions taking place for different intents. Then you go ahead with stories. Okay. All right. So rules have a particular, you can do some additions or relations. There are different things that you can do with rules. One is conversation start, wherein if you set this conversation start to true, then greet will be utter greet. But if the user says again hello at a later point of the conversation, then maybe you can change what the user should actually say, saying, oh yeah, you already told me hello, so why are you doing this? That's true. But yeah, so you can change that. So conversation start only has to give a utter greet, then that's good. Otherwise, it's fine. Skip waiting for user. It's something like usually after when a user says hello, and then the bot responds, and the bot waits, action underscore listen. The bot waits for the response from the user. But if you don't want the bot to wait and do another action instead, so you can just use a wait for user input as false. Okay. So then conditions for rules. Conditions is quite necessary and is good, wherein you want to greet only if the condition is set. So here, if the username provided name is set to, if I have given my name Rashmi, only then the bot is going to greet me. Otherwise, yeah, it's not going to do it. So you can use the conditions for rules as well. So it could be like condition where or the location has to be there. Otherwise, you cannot go ahead. Something of that sort. All right. Stories. Okay. Stories. This is pretty much the syntax of story. Stories. You write the name of the story, metadata. So here metadata is something which is not used for the flow of the conversation at all. It doesn't impact the conversation, but you can use this for like for your reference further on. So like, here I have written this story. It's pretty much like, you write comments about who has done this or etc. So you can, it's a key value. You can write your metadata so that you have it's easier for someone who is going to look at the code later point of time. All right. That after that is the steps. So steps is an elaborate list of steps. You can have different steps. So in the steps, what we have is user message first. So user message, we have the structure here wherein you give the intent, and in the intent again entities is optional, where you give the entity name and the value. For example, okay, I can show you one example right away. Oops, sorry. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so here we have, see, this is the intent, that is telling cuisine is the intent, and the entity is cuisine. So this is a format wherein you can add the keyword, the attribute entities to an intent, right? And you followed by an action for that particular message. Okay. Form stories. So as I said, stories can be used for, I mean, obviously activating and deactivating is better with rules. But if you want a story with a twist or etc., it has to be given in this way. So forms, the stories for forms are given like this. Then you have an active loop wherein you're actually telling that the form is active. And once the form, all the slots are filled up, then it just makes the active loop as null, and the action is action happens. Okay. Then slots. You can also set the slots after action is done. You can set the slot. So before it goes to any other action, you can set the slot using slot was set. Checkpoint is something very interesting here in 2.0, wherein you can see, for example, in first story, you just say greet, okay, and that's a checkpoint. Now, greet can be used in multiple stories, in multiple scenarios. So you can name that checkpoint and then go, if in another story, you can just give that as a checkpoint and go ahead with the giving the other steps for the story. So similarly, you can give the same checkpoint, that is greet checkpoint first, and then telling location or something of that sort. So that is, I think, is a good feature, but they suggest that using checkpoint too much is going to mess up it as well. So we need to be quite careful when we use that. Okay, there's or as well. So here, usually we used to write stories wherein if there are two things, then different stories for it. But here, if you can see, or if you use or, then intent is affirm or thanks, either of it. The action should be this. So this is going to save us a couple of lines. So this is the or feature. Okay. All right. So that was about rule policy. The stories, the rules, the NLU, all of that. There's another change that is there in 2.0, that is the unfeaturized slots. So the slot which was as text format, all of that, I mean, we are going to be using text for all the unfeaturized slot. And then we can also set whether it's going to influence the conversation or not. So if it does, then you have to make it as true. If it doesn't, you make it as false. And then we have slot type any for any other slots, that is any other type of data. You can keep it as any. So I have an example here. Yeah, so 1.x we had unfeaturized, autofill, etc. So here now we have text. All the unfeaturized has moved to text, and then we have the different types are going to be any. And if we have the conversation influences the flow, then it is going to be influence conversation, right? Okay. All right, retrieval intents. This is interesting. Retrieval intents are usually used for FAQs and chit chat. Obviously, all of us, when we are talking to a bot, we do certain chit chat and FAQ, like, okay, how old are you, or do you like me, or will you be my friend, etc. So that is chit chat. Okay. when you're just doing small talks with the bot to keep company or just to test it as to what it's going to answer. So those are chit chats. FAQs is something wherein you are going to ask about a question which you want to know about. For example, here it could be like, how can I cancel my order or cancel my table, etc. So for these, we have response selector. And in the previous version 1.x, response selector was actually a experimental feature, but now, yay, it is to stay. So it makes life simple. Okay, the next one. Yeah, examples. As I said, advantages, no more, it's not an experimental feature anymore. You can add multimedia response, that is images and then attachments, etc. Response can be added in the domain file, and it is also supported in Rasa X. So that's yay. Okay, so what you're going to do is in config YAML, it's again with the rule policy, but in the pipeline, you're going to say response selector, and you can also have whether it is for FAQ or whether it's for chit chat. I can show you that quickly. Yeah, right here. So here we have the response selector and the retrieval intent as chit chat, the retrieval intent as FAQ. So here is where you define what you need. Okay. All right. Yes. So what are the different formats? So usually it is good to go with rules for FAQs because here you don't have to write for different, I mean, all the different FAQs or chit chat. So I'll just explain it a bit more for people who do not are not aware of this. So we have response. Yeah, we can give chit chat responses like this, and then we can have the intents like this. Okay, so the same thing is going to move ahead, and then we have when you move it. So obviously the NLU is going to show it like this, and then we have to add it in domain, and then there is the domain responses also would be there. But the catch here is you don't have to give offer everything. For pay for booking, you may not have a different rule. For cancel booking, you don't have a different rule. You can just go ahead with just one rule, FAQ and utter FAQ, chit chat and utter chit chat. Okay. All right. Then forms. Forms is something so major, and it is made simpler now because it's moved from SDK to Rasa open source. Well, so the advantage is it's simple, and if you have just for slot mapping for required slots and for submission, you need not write it in the actions.py anymore. You can move it directly to the domain. You don't have to write that in. If you want customization, then you can go ahead with all of that still. And there is going to be a helper class form validation action, which will actually help you validate what all the user is sending us. Okay, so that is that. Yeah, the way to define a form is like this. It is going to be in the domain file. You're going to have forms. What is the name of the form? What are the different parameters, or what are the data that needs to be actually captured from the user? So we need the cuisine, then we need the number of people. So we have to put it that way. So the name of the form, the slot name, and the entity name. And then we have slot mappings. And yes, you got to remember this, that you have to have the utter ask form name, the syntax for it to recognize the form. So that needs to be there. It's a must have. Then you can use rules to activate a form. So you see here intent and action, and then once it's active, it is going to be shown there. And then you can submit the form like restaurant form, and then if it is if active loop is made null, that means it is, the form is done, it is submitted, and then all the slots have to be null, and then you just submit all the form and the slot values. So that's how you activate and deactivate the form. Okay. Form validation, this is a simple, this is just an example of how you use it. So you have to import form validation action, and in the class 2, and then this is validating the phone number. So you're using that to validate. So that's the only thing, I mean, that's what you would use a form validation action for. Session management is done by default. You can change the behavior. For example, sorry. Rasa suggests, you can go ahead with that particular bot. It suggests the model, it suggests the pipeline, and you can see whether that is best, or you can just go ahead with your customization if needed. But to start off with, I think this would be good. Okay, and then yeah, there are some things which have been changed. Even Procus, the names have been changed. So if you're using these, then do change it. I think most of you will be using Duckling, so you can change the Duckling the name to whatever is new. Okay, all right. So this is just the to-do list of migration. You're converting all the files to YAML. You're replacing all the policies with rule policy. You're checking with form policy changes. That has to be done manually. You cannot do it with, it is not an auto conversion. And then you're replacing all the unfeaturized slots with text. If you have retrieval intents, then you have to do those modifications. And then if you have, you have to define the rules and stories accordingly. Be very sure as to what rules you want and what stories you want. And then new conventions for the brokers, as I said. If you have any other classifier, it's easier. It's good to move to diet classifier and TED policy, Keras, and all of that is deprecated. And then remove the pipeline in config if you want to have a change there. Okay. I will just show you quickly as to how the final bot would respond. Okay, sorry. Time. Okay. Yes, so I say I am hungry, and yeah, Bangalore. Yeah, hope to work. So which cuisine? Italian. Okay, so we get a list of all the Italian restaurants which are nice, and then if you want to book, so this booking is where the form starts. Okay, so this is a restaurant form. So when we say we want to book for a table, then it will start asking us questions as to how many people are coming, and each form slot is getting filled over here. Okay, what is the contact number? Oops, sorry. Oops. Yeah, my numlock was okay. And okay, tomorrow. Obviously, I can't go because of the situations now. But then, yeah, this is for the example now. Okay. All right. So this is the information that is there. If you okay, now example of FAQ. How can I cancel it, the booking, right? So we still haven't worked on cancellation. So how can I cancel it as a question? Oh, I didn't understand. I'm sorry. Okay. Obviously, during a demo, something has to mess up. Otherwise, it's not a demo. It is a tradition, you see, guys. Okay. I think I'll stop sharing my screen. Um, Yogesh, I think I'm good with the presentation. I'm done. If we open to questions.
Sure. So thanks, Rashmi, for nice walkthrough. I hope you guys got the idea of what all things we need to change to move your bot to 2.0. So we have quite questions. Let me just pick few which are relevant, and some of them I already answered. So Sumit, again, regarding deployment, we are thinking to create a new sort of video on that because it's a whole together new topic. And again from Arumugam, same regarded to GCP related deployment. Uh, so there was one question related to just a second. Srijin, how to download Rasa? I've shared the link with you, so you can go to there and use pip command to install it. There was one question, Rashmi. So I'm showing here. You can use that to answer.
Mhm. Yeah, JSON is supported. It is supported. You might have to do some changes, but then yeah, it is supported still.
Okay. What about this?
Custom fallback again. Yeah, anything custom has to be done manually. You'll have to probably have rules for fallback policies. Yeah, I think pretty much manually if there is a custom to it.
Cool. Not really relevant questions, but in case if you know the answer.
Okay. Okay. Honestly, fun researcher, I'm not sure of this.
Cool. So Anand Raja will definitely help you to learn
Yeah.
the Rasa. We have already done that in the previous. How to deploy Rasa chatbot or Alexa or Google Assistant. So they already have one blog on that. So I'll share the link in our WhatsApp group and you guys can go through it. So all these questions are questions which was asked in the form. So I'm just sharing it here. Can Rasa be used in cases where we want the bot to engage by navigating the information in the document? So I think there was one nice project where Gina.ai and Rasa was used to integrate do something like this. So you can use Gina.ai to do some sort of a neural search, and you can build bot on top of that where you can ask any questions through chatbot, and chatbot will call Gina.ai or use Gina.ai framework to search answer from your document and retrieve and share it back with the user. How to integrate text generator with Rasa to generate the response from end user. So there's something called response outsourcing, or you might also refer it as a NLG. You can explore that part to outsource your responses. Rasa provides all these features. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to ask. Uh, instead of installing individual server on GCP compute engine, it would be good to have a single server with and multiple. So Armugam, what we can do here in this case is it's very specific question. So we'll talk offline and we can see if we can help you there in terms of deployment related questions. How to implement handoff to live chat, for example, Rocket live chat. You want to share anything on this, Rashmi?
Yeah,
You have.
actually, there is an example. There is a blog by Rasa itself. There are two example bots for this itself for handing off. So, what they suggest is you have two different bots, wherein one is actually going through with the initial phase, and then once there is a handoff, it moves to altogether another bot, which you know continues with the. It probably has an API extended or etc., so that it can do the handoff to the IVR. So that's what it is.
Yeah, even they have something documented on this thing. Also, probably you have to use some sort of a extra architecture to do handoff, because handoff is something definitely the message will not be going to bot, but it will be going directly to the live chat, right? So there should be some sort of a on-off switch where you can
Right.
start sending messages whenever handoff is happening to a live chat. So we'll also share that kind of blogs in our WhatsApp group, so that you guys can go through it. Like Java Oracle certification, is there Rasa certification available? So I think Rashmi can answer that because she has
Yeah.
done
So
advanced.
yeah. So there right now you have three different exams or certification. One is the basic one. It is on Udemy. That is the Rasa Basics, where you get to learn the basics and all of that. Then the second one is Rasa Deployment. If you are interested in knowing how you can deploy using Kubernetes, Docker, etc. So that is the certification you can go for. That will be an advanced certification. Another advanced certification is to understand custom actions, to understand CDD, that is conversation design, etc. So there are three exams as of now. So you can do it. You can go ahead to Udemy. Maybe we'll share the link on WhatsApp. You can go ahead with that.
Sure. So those kind of certification definitely helps to learn advanced concepts of Rasa.
Right.
If there's any other questions, we can answer that. Else we can end this webinar. So guys, I'm also sharing the WhatsApp link in the group. You guys can join that to be part of the Rasa WhatsApp group. Cool. So I guess there's no more questions.
Yeah.
We'll just wait for a minute and then we'll end this. So I hope you guys like the session. Feel free to subscribe and share, join a community. Again, the whole agenda of this webinar is to quickly walk you through the newer things in Rasa, and we already have a project with us. Which we have already migrated, so you can make use of that ready-made project and learn from that thing. And always there's many things to expand and add as a features from the Rasa or as a part of the board scope, right? So feel free to come up with the idea and share with us, and probably we can work together and make the bot even smarter or better or complex.
Yep.
Awesome, cool. So we'll just end this session, and then we hope you guys have a nice night, and we'll go and explore Rasa and learn from it.
Thank
So
you
thank you,
all.
Rashmi.
Thank you for
Thank
joining.
you. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Yogesh.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.